Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to this session of Visual Insights. My name is Susanna. I work at Visual Arena. We are a neutral collaboration platform that help and inspire companies to use visualization as a tool to clarify and explain complex situations, and also to enable insights from data that are actionable and accessible. This session today of Visual Insights, I will leave the floor to agency Smartr, which is an expert agency within data strategy, advanced analytics, and AI. And after the talk, we will have a short discussion, and you are more than welcome to add questions into the chat, and we will make sure that Erica and Victor from Smartr will receive them and be able to respond to them. So that being said, a warm welcome, and I will leave the floor to Victor and Erica. Enjoy.
Welcome everyone to Visual Insights with Smartr. Today we're going to introduce one of our tools developed at Smartr, which is called the Data Bakery. And we will show how the tool, the Data Bakery, can help you to visualize the complexity of your organization while helping you to innovate with your processes. And we will show how we combine storytelling, service design thinking, and visualizations in one to help you simplify the process of innovation. My name is Erika Pulikevičiūtė, and I'm coming from Lithuania. And if you were wondering why do I have such a long last name, in Lithuania everyone has very difficult last names. So in the past 7 years, I studied and lived in the Netherlands, where I finished my bachelor's in economics, and then I studied my master's in data science. And then since a year ago, I arrived at this beautiful town, city Gothenburg, where I joined Smartr, this amazing company, and right now I work here as a business developer and data visualization analyst in data science projects.
Hi guys, my name is Victor Olsbo. I'm the founder and CEO of Smartr, and very happy to be here to share our experiences and insights from working with innovation. I've been involved in this field for about 20 years, where I have had the opportunity to work with innovation from data, mathematics, and statistics on different detail levels, and both operational, tactical, and strategical levels, both in my own research, but also in a retail bank where I was for 10 years, and then now with different clients for the last 3 years at Smartr. And Smartr is a specialized consultancy agency within data and AI, and the things that we do at work is to help our clients create value from data. So we are 11 colleagues. We've been around for 3 years, and we create value by combining 3 different aspects. One is the analytics part, where we produce reliable and actionable insights based on statistical methods. So the other part is to what we call AI technology, and that is to put your data to work through human-centered and tailored AI applications. And the third part is the sort of data-driven development and innovation, where we ensure value creation, that what we do is in the right business context, and also that we do the right things, and we also help getting the work done. So looking at 4 different aspects of what we do at Smartr. One part is to be involved in EU and Vinnova-funded research projects, where one of them is to be part of the Ocean Data Factory, which is a data platform and a framework for putting out products and services to help with the sustainable ocean. One other thing is a platform for route optimization used in the shipping industry, where we aim to reduce fuel cost and fuel consumption for ships. Then we have our own concepts and an academia. The Data Bakery that we talk about today is one of them, but we also do teaching and courses at different organizations. And then there's also the sort of base business that we do, which is the consultancy, where we are expert resources and strategical partners to help our clients fuel their journey within data and AI. And then we have our broad business, which is the consultancy, of course, where we are expert resources and strategical partners to our clients and help them fuel their journey towards becoming more and more mature within data and AI. And lastly, we're also involved as founders and developers at startups. So, but work is not all we do. I know, Erica, that you during this weekend had some activities and insights that's connected to innovation.
It definitely is. And I would like to start with my Saturday story. So this Saturday, I just invited my friend over, and I decided to make some brunch for her. And I decided to make some waffles. And waffles is a quite straightforward process for me. I make waffles almost every Sunday, and I love making waffles. I know how they're made. And I invited her over, and I made the waffles, and they didn't seem that nice. And then I thought, did I forget something? And then we sat eating them, and they were super crispy. And I was like, do you think something is missing? And she's like, maybe it does. Anyway, I forgot to add eggs in the waffles, and they didn't turn out as good as I wanted. And you might think, like, why am I even telling you the story? Because when innovating with data and developing those data-driven concepts, we actually use a very similar process. We mix a lot of data together, and then we include different perspectives, and those perspectives are people with different backgrounds and expertise coming together and making something of that data that we would have an exciting and desirable outcome. And usually those perspectives and these people try to reach the balance between making sure that the product is desirable, actually our customers want to use it and it solves their pain or understands them, but also that it actually brings value for an organization, while also it is feasible and it's technically feasible to produce it or to make it. So this is exactly the same when we're making waffles. We want to make sure that we have all the ingredients at home when we're combining and making the dough, but also we want to ensure that our customer is happy with the outcome. In this case, I forgot eggs, but when we're making data-driven concepts, we need to make sure that we do not forget those ingredients, that we would have this exciting product. So today's presentation, we want to show you that innovation with data can actually be very simple if you look from a different perspective. And that's going to be our purpose for today, how to move from very complex to very easy when innovating with data. And I guess right now, Victor will tell you all the tips and tricks and everything about innovation. So giving this part to you.
Thank you, Erica. So in today's ever-changing business environment fueled by digitalization, we need to have innovation as a core capability. And when we talk about innovation, it's not just creativity, it's both. It's a good balance between creativity and execution. So we both need to come up with new ideas or new ways to solve old problems or possibilities, and then also be able to execute and solve them in a good way. So, but looking at data on innovation, we see that it's very hard to execute on innovation, and looking at the numbers, it's a very, very low percentage of innovation that actually gets successful. So it's even below 5% looking at it overall if you take data from startups or larger organizations. And if you ask CEOs at different companies, they say that they feel very, very inconfident in their innovation capabilities in their organizations. So some challenges connected to innovation is, of course, having the process, having the energy flowing through that process, so that you go from what we call the problem space, where you define and you find things to innovate around, and then going to the solution space where you sort of find the solution to the problems. So that's one part, having a good flow and energy flow in that process. Another thing is user adoption. So there's a concept called diffusion of innovation, where we're looking at this from a structure level. It's very easy to get some early adopters on board, like innovators, people who tend to like new things. They often don't care about what it is, it's just that it's new. But then you have like the next part, which is around 10%, which is like early adopters. That is very important. So coming up to like around 15%, you'll have something called the chasm, which is the big thing, the big hurdle that you need to sort of leap over in order to get your innovation out there and become mature. Right, so moving forward to other types of challenges that we often see is that even though that you have an idea on what you are solving, the how is not always apparent for everyone. So you can have some misalignment where different teams or different part of the organization are solving the same problem, but doing it in different ways. So you have a big misalignment there. And also always remember that even though you are working with innovation yourself and finding and delivering new things, the people that are supposed to use them are often very, very busy with their daily jobs. So they're not open to innovation. That when you come with great things, you need to make sure that the user is open to adopt that into their daily job. So very important aspect is to actually keep focus on the task that you are supporting. So this is a great quote from Clayton Christensen, that people hire a project or a service to get a job done. So just using this job to be done theory to identify what you are actually solving, and what you are solving or how you solve things will change over time. So for example, if you look at the task of cleaning or having a clean home, the solution to that has changed over time, going from a broom to a robot vacuum cleaner. And one thing that's very important nowadays, of course, is data. So digitalization makes data a strategic resource, and data is a key component to more or less every invention today. And we use data in every aspect of our companies, and then in every aspect of our innovation. So I'll hand over to you here, Erica, to talk about data and innovation.
Okay, so what does data say about data? So 90% of business leaders say that general knowledge of data is key factor for company success, but only 25% of employees feel comfortable in their computer skills. So as you can see, data literacy is a huge issue in organizations today. And also most companies analyze only 12% of their data they have. In other words, 88% of all the data remains unanalyzed. So we can see that it's actually quite hard to work with data because we don't know where to start. We don't know what to do. We have so much data, but what's now? And innovating with data especially is challenging because innovating on its own is challenging. But when you add data into the context, it becomes even more challenging. So what are those barriers? What is happening? Why is it so challenging? So when innovating from data, we have seen 3 different types of barriers. The first one is hard to talk. Data is a complex subject on its own, and it has its own vocabulary. And different people from different departments in an organization, they perceive data in a completely different way. So if you would ask designers how they perceive data, maybe they wouldn't understand maybe the word data, but they perceive data as what people like, their likes, behaviors, and forms or shapes. When you talk with business about data, they see data as a financial value to organization. And when you talk about data with tech people, maybe they deep dive into data and they actually want to check the data quality and the bias behind the data, and actually trying to understand more technical things behind. And it's also when we have these different languages in organizations and talking in those different languages, it becomes very hard to connect. And when there is no collaboration and it's very hard to connect, it's very hard to innovate and create something. So to a large extent, we still work in silos. And it's also when we work in those different departments and talking these different languages, it's very hard to test hypotheses because maybe each of the department have their own hypothesis to test. So validation often starts very late in the process when we're already almost done with the product, and then we actually want to validate, does our customer actually need this product? So we wanted to create something that creates that common language that no matter your background or your expertise, whether you're a data person or not, you can still engage and talk in a language that is easy to understand. So ensure like to democratize the dialogue and make data as an easy understanding concept. Also, we wanted to create a joint view where everyone can develop this clear vision and holistic approach. And always ensure that we always solving someone's problem and we understanding someone or solving someone's pain. So we wanted to make sure that we always include those perspectives that is desirable by a customer, that is viable and actually feasible to make. So we decided to look at our current process of how we work, and from that look of where we can start innovating. So this is usually how the value chain of data looks and how we start working with data. Firstly, we have a lot of data, and data itself doesn't really tell us anything. We need to do something with it. So we usually start with data visualizations. We visualize this data, and that it allows us to see the correlations and the characteristics behind. Because once we have those visuals, it becomes intuitive. You can look at it, you can see how the dots are connecting and how it starts to make sense. So once we have this data visualization, after that, we take the information out of it. And that's what is called exploratory data analysis. And then later on, we slowly start building those models, always looking back of what data is actually telling us. And then we develop those machine learning models, let's say, or more simple models. And then we move towards summarizing the outcome the model provided. And the outcome is, again, summarized in visualization, because visualization, again, helps you to show those insights. And that's not it. Once you show those insights, then the leaders, the management, they take those insights out of the data visualization. And with those insights, they try to impact their organization by developing a strategy upon that. So we knew that from this process, visualization was a clear takeaway, and we wanted to create a framework where we could include visualizations as at the core. So let's look at visualizations. Visualizations are great. As you can see right now, I'm showing this example of a data visualization. So this is a simulation of 1,000 people on their average day. And it's based on 2014 data taken from American Time Use Survey. And as you can see, this is the data of how people are moving throughout 24 hours. So if you would get this data in a table form, it would be very hard to see of what they're actually doing. But when you have the data visualization, and you can see on the left side, the time is like passing by, and you can see how people are moving, is a dynamic representation of information. And these data visualizations help us to talk about what is important, even though the underlying structures are very complex. But that's not it. On the left side, you can already see a little bit that it incorporates the context, because data visualization without context is not as good, because it doesn't tell you anything. And data visualization is strong only when it actually delivers the story and delivers the message. So essential part of data visualization is context, and context is actually stories. So this data visualization becomes strong just because of the story behind, because I'm telling you that it's 1,000 people in US, and you can see those those keywords around the circle where they're moving at a specific time. But the core of this is stories, and stories are very powerful because they can actually allow us to share the knowledge. The data visualization provides us this knowledge, and we can approach complex and difficult subjects and simplify them with the stories and help people to relate and understand in a better way. And a great example of this is Astrid Lindgren and how she wrote about very complex subjects and topics in her children's books by simplifying the story and make it understandable for her audience. So stories are great, and they are integral part of us. We grow up with stories. We always tell stories. Everything what we do is stories. And stories get people engaged and focused on what is actually important. So it was clear that we want to visualize some sort of a process and include visualizations, but also keep storytelling as a major part of this framework. But we were still missing something. But how can we include these two aspects, these two lessons learned from how we work, and also make sure that we solve the right problem? So we were still missing something. And that's where the service design and design thinking came into place, because the service design and design thinking is focused on solving the right problem, is focused on putting the customer at the core. So the service design thinking works by investigating the needs of the user or the customer, and they always explore how and why. So they really dive deep into the problem. They try to understand the pains that customers have, or the gains they want to achieve, and the jobs that they need to get done. And they always, design thinking has this designer's approach of a continuous experimentation, that we can experiment and fail quickly and build up on that. So it takes this iterative approach in the decision-making process. So we wanted to include these three components because they thought this is something amazing: visualization, storytelling, and service design thinking. So then we thought, how can we combine? Because the great aspect of visualizations, of simplifying that complexity behind, also the power of storytelling that people could relate, understand, and remember, and also service design principles to put the customer at the core. And we came to this idea of developing data bakery. So on the right side, you see the data bakery. This is our bakery house, and it breaks down complexity by visualizing the process of how you should work with data, when innovating with data, when developing that data-driven concept. And it incorporates storytelling. So the baker's perspective, that you're baking something in the context, and the service design principle adds customer at the core of the framework by incorporating the perspectives of business, of tech, and of the customer, as I mentioned before. So how does it visualize the process? So as I showed you before, the value chain of working with data. So when you start working with data, you need to find the right data. That's exactly the same when you're looking for the ingredients to make your waffles. So you need to make sure that you have those ingredients at home. When you work with data, you need to make sure that you have that data in your organization. Maybe you don't have the data. Maybe you need to go to some external partners to get that data. Maybe your data is an open source. So you have to think exactly the same way. And also, when I have my ingredients for my waffles, I need to make sure that they're in a good quality. I don't want to serve bad tasting waffles to my friend. So that's exactly what you need to do about data. You need to check the data, whether it's quality good, whether it does little bias in it. You need to be critical when you look at it. And then if you don't have the data needed, what you need to develop, then you need to acquire and store. That's the same like with eggs. I needed to go to the store to get it. And then you start mixing and blending. And then once you have an outcome, that outcome doesn't do anything if you don't have the customer, which is gonna get happy because of that outcome. So I made those waffles for my friend and I distributed to her. But in that case, when you make something data-driven concept, someone has to use it in order to make an impact in organization. So from this, you can see that this data baking metaphor really aligns with the value chain of working with data, because we have raw data and data sources as ingredients for making something. We have value proposition as our customers who's gonna eat those waffles or who's gonna use that data-driven concept. And we also have a concept, those baked goods, those are waffles. And then we also have a business case. Does it bring value? In that case, it brings value for my friend and me because we enjoyed and it increased our happiness and satisfaction. But when you develop data-driven concept, that concept has to bring value. It has to make or save money or make someone happy in our organization. So what it overall does, it combines all these three different perspectives, because those perspectives are at the core of any organization. You always need to focus on your customers, because when you're developing a data-driven concept, customers are at the core. They are the ones who are going to use the product. They're going to integrate with the product. They're going to play around. They're going to be the final stop. But also you need to make sure that it's feasible, it's possible to make, it's technically feasible to make, that you have the right people, the right skills, and you know what needs to be done. But it's also viable. It brings value for your organization. So here we included one great example. This example is about COVID. When you look at the data bakery house, you can start at any layer you want. But if you start with a value proposition, you have to define what is this unique value, what our customer actually wants, what kind of pain and gains they have. So in the Corona example, when the Corona started, there were a lot of information of Corona, and sometimes you get overwhelmed, like where to look, where to find. So they had like a pain of gain of like looking through all these different websites, but not having this information summarized or finding in their language that they can understand. And then as a concept was to create a chat box on WhatsApp that you can always write a question, and no matter in what language you write, it always gives you an answer which is needed for you at that specific time. So it would create a great value, and that was WHO project for Health Organization. So then the business value for the organization be that like customers can actually reliable information very quickly and accurately in all the different languages, and that would actually give a lot of awareness and engagement for organization itself with the people who are interested in their business. So then if we would look to tools and skills, then we need identify, so what exactly we need to do. So in that case, maybe it's not that easy, but with our facilitation, we usually understand, okay, so if we work with text data and we translate in many different languages and we want to take this information from different websites, we need some natural language processing. We need like some people with data science, data engineer, and software engineers to develop that chat box and do like some sort of like a web scraping from different websites that you could actually have this aggregated data in one place. And then once you identify that, then you dive deep into the topics, but what data do we need in order to develop this? So here included just a few examples. So for example, we would need like the corona spreading rate, number of deaths per country, or death rate in general, or infection rates. And then you need to understand, but where do we store that data? Where can we access this kind of data? So it's the same with the ingredients. Where do you store this data? So for example, medical papers from hospitals, you can be here very specific, research papers or different newsletters as BSC or CNN and so on. So this is an example of the bakery house. So from our experience as Smartr, we were very happy with this outcome because we really felt that like it really allowed us to create this inclusive environment for people with different backgrounds, competences, and perspectives to work productively and meaningfully. So we were very happy to have it because it allowed us to collaborate and actually invent and innovate. And I would like to invite Victor back to the presentation.
Thank you, Erika. And just to some concluding principles or remarks. So you say that when you work with innovation processes, remember that it should be human-centered, not only for the users, but for people working in the processes. It should be made for humans. You have the not working in silos principle, so it should be co-creative, an environment where you work together to easily find possibilities, but also risks. You can easily validate your hypothesis. The more perspectives you get earlier in the process. So sometimes, especially when we work with data and AI, it feels intangible. It's a complex subject all in all. So it's important to make the intangible tangible. And lastly, just use the holistic approach that it's connected to the validation as well. So you try to focus on all aspects of the things you do, and in order to validate as early as possible in the process. So, thanks.
Thank you. And that's it with us today.
Okay, so thank you for that. It's time to move over to the discussion session, the part of this event. So to start off, it's interesting that you're using the bakery metaphor to lower the thresholds and raise the ability to understand what data is all about. What has the response been, Victor, for using the bakery as a metaphor?
Yeah, I think it's been very, very good. So I come from an analytical, more technical background myself, and I've been using those kind of terms before. And I find that when we talk in this way, this metaphor, it's a lot more engaging for the audiences, and it opens up the dialogue and democratizes the dialogue in a good way. So it's been very, very, it's been good. Good response, yeah.
Good. And just a question, can sort of any organization take part in the data bakery?
Well, it really depends, like if the organization wants to use the data in its core. So if they want to use data to support decision-making process and actually innovate, but always like put the data and use data to understand their customers, understand like how this data can help to develop that concept, then most organizations who want to work with data and want to be more data-driven.
Could it even be like non-profit organizations?
Definitely. We actually have like one example. Last week we played Data Bakery with a non-profit organization with a women in tech, and we were doing this ACE project. And we were putting a data bakery in a totally different context, where we were playing, trying to develop concepts for gender equality. And it worked very well. So we see that it actually works not only for data-driven concepts, but also like for a different type of contexts. And it's also for non-profit and also for profit organizations. It's all depending like on your goals, what you want to achieve, and then Data Bakery helps you to achieve that.
And you were talking a bit about that it's important to add many perspectives to the conversation and to the discussions regarding data. What sort of perspectives have to be in the discussion?
Yeah, I think this is like the core of the Data Bakery, to always include like those perspectives. And what we really try to focus is to focus like on the design perspective, on the people who really can understand the customers, their behavior, their preferences, what they like, but also like on the technical perspective, like if we are developing this data-driven concept, like do we have resources, do we have the tools, do we have the skills, the people needed like in order like to develop it. But it's also like on the organizational value perspective, so on the business perspective, it's extremely important to include these people and understand like, can we sell this product? Is it gonna bring value to our organization? Can we make money? Or is it gonna save money? Also like, we sometimes dive into like the perspectives, like if it doesn't bring any monetary value, maybe it brings some organizational more intrinsic value for people in organization, like for example, building and making stronger relationships and bonds. So yeah, the perspectives are at the core of Data Bakery, and I think they're extremely important.
It sounds like you can also break down the silos within an organization that you can sometimes see if it comes to like the business silo, the design silo, and the data or IT silos.
Yeah, 100%. Like always bring in one room and like creating this super inclusive environment that everyone can open up and share their knowledge, because it's all about sharing the knowledge and understanding what struggles, what pains other departments have, and try like to contribute and build something together.
So it sounds like there are a lot of opportunities with this, but are there any common pitfalls that you need to be aware of?
Yeah, generally, as we talked about in the seminar, when you do the innovation process, so that's the pitfalls that we try to solve with the bakery, of course, is that you tend to work in silos, so you don't get the perspectives in as soon as you would like in the innovation process. So, for example, it's usually often driven by the tech side. So the tech sides are data savvy, they can talk the data language, but the business side could be somewhat data savvy, but the design side or the customer side is usually intimidated by that language. So I guess the big pitfalls are the ones that we're trying to solve with the data bakery, I guess. So yes, there are other pitfalls, but with the data bakery, maybe not so many.
Yeah, good. And I noticed that when we look at the house or the bakery in itself, I noticed that there is a chimney on top of the house, which concerns the ethic parts, which of course is a crucial aspect when we're talking about data. Yeah. How do you work with that more specifically?
So going back to the perspectives parts, that's another important perspective to get in as soon as possible. And so you have both like the general ethics about bias in data that you want to address as soon as possible. So before you build something, you need to be able to put that perspective and talk about that. Are there any dangers of bias in the data if we try to build predictive models that will make decisions on recruitment or whatever, so that we raise those questions early in the process before we even get data, I guess. But then there's the compliance part, like with the GDPR and stuff like that. That's also, I think, incorporated in that. So that perspective, to get that in there as soon as possible, because that's, if we take another pitfall with the innovation process with data, is that you have built something and then the compliance department says, well, you can't do this because of GDPR, for example. Then you have overinvested in something that you can't use. And we try to just do a sound way of handling bias, ethics, and compliance, and get it as early as possible in the process by using the data bakery.
And I think this is also like the core of the data bakery, that you can validate those perspectives like as soon as possible. So in this like an iterative approach, you validate, and then you can make sure that you can actually start building a prototype, and you can start building this product, which will bring all the value for the ones like playing, but also for the organization.
And also for the ones in the compliance department, they usually get thrown in by the end of the process, and that's not a good role to have. It's not too fun to become the one who puts an end to a project that everybody wants to do. To get them engaged as early as possible is also good for that type of roles as well, for their own sake, I think, in these processes.
Yeah,
so that makes it more fun.
Yeah. And how would you say, just to get some suggestions on how can you get started with your data-driven business development and strategy activities? What would be a good way?
In a very simple terms, you can start playing data bakery, because then you actually prioritize your needs, your wants, and you define those jobs to be done. And then you just like try like to go into the concepts. But I guess like the very good starting point is to actually playing data bakery, but also when you play data bakery, to really understanding like your customer and diving into like this like a layer of value proposition, to understanding like the customer, like what jobs do they need to do on their daily basis. And then when you understand that, you can move forward like with the whole business development.
Would you say that there is sort of an average size of companies or organizations that are better fit to play the data bakery, or can really small organizations and large ones do it as well?
Yeah, I would say, like, if you want to use it to really kickstart your data-driven innovation journey, it's good to not be a too big-sized company. It's good if you are a smaller sized company where you have access to the data and you have you're more quick-footed, that you can start working on it as soon as possible. But any organization, of course, can do it. But if you're smaller and you have more control of your data assets, it's usually easier to continue on after the data bakery, I would say.
And also in terms of maturity in these data-related issues, what would you say about that? Are there any specific aspects that...
Yeah, I think that might be the the downturn of the metaphor. I think it's more for immature companies than mature companies. I think if you are mature in the field of data and AI, maybe the data bakery can feel too playful, and you don't feel that you need that. So I think it's more sort of made for non-mature organization to kickstart their data-driven innovation journey. But there are continuations to use this when you get more and more mature, of course. You could sort of, by the end, skip the bakery metaphor if you get tired of that, and just use the design thinking part, which is the core of the concept, I guess.
And I think it can be very good for mature companies as well if they like have like a specific product and they want to improve the functionality, and then they can just have like this inclusive environment where they can really like focus on that functionality and figure out like what data they have within an organization that can like support in developing this functionality.
Yeah, because you can be very mature on the like data side. You can be very good at building algorithms and things, but you're not targeting the right questions, and you don't get all perspectives in anyway. So we know that tech organizations sometimes are unequal, and so I think this could be a way to get all perspective, democratize the business development as well in a data-driven organization, of course, that is more mature.
And you do want to innovate because like in this competitive environment, you want to stay competitive and relevant. So I guess it's important.
Yeah, so we talked a bit about the benefits already about breaking down organizational silos and distributing ownership and creating sort of a common frame of reference. Is there anything else that you would like to add that can be viewed as a benefit for organization when it comes to starting working with data and strategy in terms of data-driven innovation and business development?
So I guess like the number one benefit is actually Data Baker helps you like to develop those data innovative concepts that co-creative. But I think also what it does very well, it helps you like to foster culture, because culture is at the core of any company, and it helps like to foster this data-driven culture and empathetic culture that actually understands and creates an understanding and space for everyone like to talk and open up. And I think that's a huge part. And I think maybe like the third part, which would be like extremely good benefit, that it helps you like to validate those concepts as early as you can in the process. And it always ensures like this iterative approach. So I think like these may be like the main benefits to the ones you already mentioned before.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, so it's getting time to wrap up this session. We thank you so much for your interesting talk. And thank you so much to the audience, and please keep an eye out on our website for upcoming events. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.